Well, Senator Warren, thank you very much for sitting down with Politics Now. We really appreciate you.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
And this is now, how many times have you been to Nevada?
Oh gosh, multiple.
Multiple. I only remember the one where we were out in the very cold. That one's in my memories.
That's right, and that's the one that had all the lights.
Yes.
Warren spelled out in lights. I'm telling you.
That was in the background of all of our shots.
That's right. Nevada knows how to do it.
So how are you feeling since the debates? According to CNN, you've gotten a surge in the polls since the performance?
You know, it's not about the polls. It's that I've been doing this now for 6 months, and it's just been this incredible honor to be able to get out and talk about what's broken and plans to fix it and how hopeful that is. You know, if you really do understand what's gone wrong and you've got some ideas for what to do about it, this is it. It's 2020 is going to determine the direction our country goes for generations to come. And this is our chance to make this government, to make this country not just work for a thin slice at the top, but really to make it work for everybody.
You know, you have said that the progressive agenda appeals across the country, across party lines, across age, gender, everything else. But there is a swath of Trump supporters that seem to me to have organized and support, not necessarily for Trump, but in opposition to Democrats, any Democrat. They would never support a Democrat no matter what. So you seem to make the calculation that there aren't enough of those people to prevent you from winning the White House.
I don't think of it quite that way. The way I think of this is the changes that we need to make in this country, lots of folks get, whether they're Democrats, independents, or Republicans. For example, I talk a lot about corruption, about how government works great for giant drug companies, but not for people who are trying to fill a prescription. It works great for investors in private prisons and immigration detention centers, but not for people whose lives are torn apart. It works great for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, but not for those of us who worry about climate change bearing down on us. When I talk about corruption, it's not just Democrats who get it. And understand, it's not just something that's happened in the last couple of years. This has been going on now for decades, in which the rich and the powerful just keep calling the shots, just keep day by day by day, getting a little more power and doing a little better, while everybody else gets left behind. And I think in much of America, there's a real appetite for change. The wealth tax that I've proposed, 2 cents on the great fortunes above $50 million, that's the top 1/10 of 1%. You know, somewhere just short of about 3 out of 4 Americans say, good idea. Good, let's talk about it.
And we will definitely get to that. That's definitely on my list. Real quick, you mentioned private prisons. Would you ban private prisons as president?
I don't believe anybody should be making a profit out of locking people up. And I'll give you 2 reasons for that. One is it's just plain wrong. But the second is you build a private prison and it becomes another industry that has its own set of lobbyists in Washington. I was just at Homestead down in Florida. There is now a group that gets $775 a day for every child held in that facility. Think about what that means. There's now a group of investors making money, and that means they keep saying to government, we don't need to make changes, don't need to make immigration reform changes, don't need to make criminal justice reform. Nah, if we really believe people need to be locked up, then that is a government function and it should be run by the government.
You have also talked about lobbying reform.
Yep.
What would you want to do on lobbying reform? That's difficult,
so
isn't
much.
It?
You bet it's difficult.
Because I mean, it implicates free speech. You know, I should be able to go to you and say, Senator, support my company.
No. Think of it another way. Let me give you a couple of pieces of how you can do lobbying reform. I believe that anyone who serves in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, serves as president, serves as head of a cabinet, is a cabinet officer or head of an agency, should be banned from lobbying for life. I think that when you go to work for the government in a position like that, you're working for the taxpayers. And no one in this country should wonder whether or not you're looking over at the edge at the next job that's going to pay you millions of dollars for what? For your Rolodex, for access to who you know.
Now, you're an attorney, I'm not, but will that pass constitutional
Sure.
muster?
You can say this is part of the terms of the deal. Is part of the terms of the deal are that if you want this job, then you have to agree to a lifetime ban that you're not going to take another one. Doesn't say you can't say things. You say whatever you want to say. You're just not going to get paid millions of dollars for going out and saying it on behalf of the drug industry or saying it on behalf of big financial institutions. Nope. It's just got to be your own ideas.
You've called for breaking up big companies,
Yep.
Google, Amazon, Apple. Do you want to do that primarily to reduce their political influence or to benefit consumers, or is it a twofer?
It's both. It is a twofer, and that is exactly the right way to think of it. So think of it this way. Amazon. Right now, think of the power Amazon has. So 9% of all retail sales, physical sales, are at Walmart. 49% of all online sales are through Amazon. Amazon runs this platform where you can go and shop for pet cookies for your dog or your cat or whatever you want to shop for, right? And you can see all the options. And that's great, works well. But Amazon runs a second business, and that is it collects information from every time you show up on the website and every time the pet cookie sales office shows up on that website, collects all the information, and Amazon says, I see a profitable business there. And so Amazon then can decide to go into the pet cookie business because it sees it's profitable and take the profitable pet cookie business, something somebody worked hard and sweated to build, move them back to page 7 where nobody will ever see them again. It's like baseball. You can either be the umpire, run the platform, or you can have a team in the league, but you don't get to be the umpire and have teams in the league. So I think those things ought to be broken up.
And would consumers benefit, you think?
Oh, you bet. Consumers would benefit, and you know who else would benefit? Small businesses, sellers. And every time...
Because they could sell their products.
Because they get a better chance. That's exactly right. They're more competitive. And in the long run, that's what helps consumers. You get those businesses in there competing with each other. See, that's the way markets are supposed to work, is lots of businesses competing with each other, and that's how consumers benefit. But right now, in tech, you've got a handful of giants that control it all. And as a result, they wipe out a lot of their competition before the competition ever gets a foothold. Same thing happens over with big ag, for example, in the agriculture industry. Same thing happens in financial services with the big financial institutions. When you get that much power at the top, it wipes out the competition, and they now have a lot of power in Washington. So the Farm Bill gets written, the financial services regulations get done, tech, everybody stays away. Why? They got a lot of lobbyists who are getting a lot of money to keep pushing those views in Washington.
And that would be accomplished through antitrust
That's
law,
right.
existing antitrust.
Exactly
Okay.
right.
I promised we'd talk about your wealth tax.
Oh, yes.
You have got a lot of plans. I've read a lot in the last few days preparing for this interview. Would that wealth tax cover all your plans? Would middle-class people have to pay anything more for all of the programs you're talking about, Medicare for all, free public college, student loan debt relief, things like that?
So the wealth tax, there are different pieces that cover different things, but the wealth tax, let me tell you what you can do. 2 cents on the greatest fortunes in this country. This is above $50 million. Your first $50 million, you keep free and clear, but that 50 millionth and first dollar, you got to kick in 2 cents, and 2 cents for every dollar after that. That's the top 1/10 of 1%, 75,000 families in this country. What can we do with that 2 cents? And the answer is universal child care, every baby age 0 to 5. universal pre-K, every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in this country, raise the wages of every child care worker and every preschool teacher in this country to the professional levels they deserve. Universal tuition-free technical school, community college, and 4-year college for anybody who wants to get an education. $50 billion to historically black colleges and universities and minority-serving institutions to level the playing field for them. Cancel student loan debt for 95% of the kids who've got student loan debt. Build a $7 billion fund that will help create equity for small businesses that are women-owned and minority-owned, and more and more and more. The point is, and this should tell you something about our economy, 2 cents on this tiny fraction of fortunes covers all of that. And to me, what's that really about? It's not just the dollars, it's about our values. Is it more important for us as a country to say that that tippy top needs to hang on to that 2 cents, or that we say, good for you, that you built a great fortune, no one wants to be punitive, but dang, you built that fortune using workers all of us help pay to educate. You built that fortune getting your goods to market on roads and bridges, all of us help pay to build. Put that 2 cents in so everybody else gets a chance in this country.
And in terms of the middle class, would they pay any more in taxes?
No, not on this.
Not even
no,
for Medicare
no.
for all?
Medicare for all is different. And the place you want to pause there is to recognize we're paying for health care now. We pay for it every time somebody goes bankrupt. We pay for it every time somebody cuts their pills in half because they can't afford the full prescription. We pay for it every time someone puts off going to the doctor to have a lump checked out, or fails to show up for a doctor's appointment because they can't afford the co-pays. You know, healthcare is one of these pieces. I've spent a big chunk of my life studying why families go broke, and the cost of healthcare is one of the principal reasons. We have a healthcare system now that's just badly out of whack. So here are families struggling to pay the copay on a prescription, and we've got an insurance industry that made $23 billion in profits last year, denying healthcare coverage to the people who need it.
I know you're about ready to go on stage, so
Yeah.
so I will not keep you long. Just ask one last question.
Sure.
You talked a lot in the debate about fighting. You're going to
Yeah.
fight for people like you fight for your own family. The fight against corporations that have outsized influence. The fight against big lobbying dollars and all that. Is there room, you think, for compromise? Is there or is this just going to be a fight all the way?
Oh, look, of course there's room for compromise. We got to find the right places, the right ways to make it work. So when you're talking about, you know, how exactly are we going to put together this piece or that piece, but understand the core part, we need to be fighting for people who work hard every day. We got to be in that fight. And if compromise means, you know, one side wants to take away health care from 20 million Americans and the compromise is 10 million Americans will lose their health care. No, that's not compromise. You got to be willing to be in the fight for what matters the most. Because here's how I see this. This is our chance. This is our moment in history. What happens in 2020 is going to affect us for generations to come. We can be an America that just works better and better for a thinner and thinner slice at the top and leaves everybody else behind. Or we can be the America of our best values. And the way we do that, you get in there and fight for it.
Sounds good. Well, Senator, thank you so much for sitting down with us. We hope you'll come back on a future visit.
I'd love to. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having me.
Absolutely.